My daughter denied me at her wedding, but I told the whole hall who paid for it. You know, child, there are moments in life that crack you open like an old walnut. Hard shell on the outside, but soft and vulnerable within. The day my daughter looked at me with shame in her eyes, asking me to hide myself at the wedding I'd spent my life savings on. That was my cracking moment. I didn't know whether to cry or to pray, so I did both. But what I learned that day was something every mother fears and few ever speak aloud. Sometimes the children we raise become strangers when the world tells them we're not enough. And sometimes, silence becomes the heaviest thing a woman can carry, until she finally sets it down and lets the truth walk free. Welcome, my dear. This is Grandma Alice Stories, where every tale carries a lesson and every wound carries wisdom. Pour yourself something warm, settle into your favorite chair, and come close. Because today's story isn't easy to tell, but it needs telling. Life has a way of teaching us through heartbreak, and sometimes the deepest cuts come from those we love most. But remember, child, every storm passes, and the sun always finds a way to shine through the cracks. I need to take you back 6 months before that wedding day, back to when my daughter Sarah first showed me the ring. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'd just come home from my shift at Rosie's Diner, the same place I'd worked for 32 years. My feet ached something terrible, the kind of ache that settles deep into your bones and reminds you of every double shift, every holiday worked, every time you chose overtime over rest because rent doesn't pay itself. I was slipping off my shoes by the door when I heard her car pull up. Sarah burst through that door like sunshine itself, her face glowing with a light I hadn't seen since she was a little girl on Christmas morning. "Mama!" she cried, and before I could even straighten up, she was showing me her left hand, where a diamond caught the evening light and threw little rainbows across my worn kitchen walls. "He proposed, Mama. Marcus proposed." I pulled her into my arms, and for a moment, just a moment, I was holding my baby girl again, the one who used to fall asleep on my chest while I worked night shifts as a home nurse, the one who I'd raised alone after her daddy passed when she was only 3. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so happy for you." And I was. Lord knows I was. Marcus came from what they call good stock. His family owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 counties, lived in one of those houses with columns out front and a circular driveway. Sarah had met him at the bank where she worked as a teller, and he'd been courting her proper for nearly 2 years. He was polite enough when he came around, always called me ma'am, though I noticed he never stayed long, never wanted coffee, never asked about my day. But Sarah loved him, and that was enough for me. "Mama," she said that evening, pulling back to look at me with those green eyes, her daddy's eyes. "I want to talk to you about the wedding." We sat at my little kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg I kept meaning to fix, and she pulled out magazines, thick, glossy things filled with photographs of weddings that looked like they belonged in palaces. Girls in white dresses that cost more than my car, flowers arranged like art installations, venues with names I couldn't pronounce. "This is what I'm dreaming of," she said softly, almost apologetically. "I know it's a lot, Mama, but Marcus's family, they have certain expectations." My heart sank a little, but I kept my smile steady. "Tell me what you need, baby." What she needed, it turned out, was everything. The venue alone. Some restored plantation house with gardens that went on for acres, cost $12,000. The dress she wanted was $4,000. Flowers, catering, photographer, band, invitations printed on paper so thick and creamy it felt like fabric. The numbers kept climbing, and with each one, I watched my daughter's hope dim a little. "Marcus's parents offered to pay for half," she said quietly. "But his mother said it's traditional for the bride's family to cover the ceremony and reception. I told them you'd contribute what you could. But Mama, if we can't afford it, maybe we should just do something small." "No." The word came out firmer than I intended. Sarah looked at me surprised. "You'll have your wedding, Sarah. The one you're dreaming of." "Mama, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you." I reached across that table and took her hands in mine. Hands that were softer than mine, prettier, with nails that weren't broken from years of scrubbing and serving and surviving. I've been saving for something special. This is it. What I didn't tell her was that the something special was supposed to be a little cottage by the lake. A place where I could retire, sit on a porch, and finally rest these tired bones. I'd been saving for 15 years, putting away every spare dollar in a savings account that had grown slowly but steadily. It wasn't much by some standards, but to me it represented freedom, peace, a reward for decades of hard work. But when I looked at my daughter's face, glowing with hope and love, I knew that cottage could wait, maybe forever, because isn't that what mothers do? We plant trees we'll never sit under. We give away our tomorrows so our children can have their todays. Over the next 4 months, I watched that savings account drain like water through a sieve. I sold my late husband's vintage pickup truck, the one I'd kept in the garage for 20 years because it still smelled like him on rainy days. I cashed in the small retirement fund I'd been contributing to since I was 40. I took on extra shifts until my manager at the diner pulled me aside and told me I looked like death warmed over. But Sarah got her wedding. She got the venue with the gardens. She got the dress that made her look like a princess. She got the flowers, white roses and peonies, hundreds of them, arranged by some florist who charged more per bouquet than I made in a week. She got the 5-tier cake, the live band, the photographer who'd shot weddings for minor celebrities. And through it all, I was so proud, so impossibly proud, until 3 days before the wedding, when Sarah came to my house alone. She wouldn't meet my eyes as she sat down at that same kitchen table. Her hands twisted in her lap, and I knew, the way mothers always know, that something was wrong. "Mama," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to talk to you about Saturday." "What about it, honey?" "Everything's set. Your dress is pressed. The final payment's been made. It's about the seating arrangement." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The seating? Sarah finally looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame. Marcus's family, they're very traditional, very image-conscious. His mother has been asking questions about our family, about our background. Our background. About where we come from. About what you do for a living. About. She trailed off, unable to finish. But I finished it for her, my voice steady even as my world tilted. About whether I'm good enough to sit with them. The silence that followed was heavier than any words could have been. "Mama, please understand. Where will I be sitting, Sarah?" She closed her eyes. "In the back, behind the pillar. Marcus's mother thought it would be best if you were less visible, just during the ceremony. At the reception, you can sit wherever." "I see." 2 words. That's all I could manage. 2 words that carried 35 years of sacrifice, love, and now heartbreak. Sarah reached for my hand, but I pulled it back gently. Not in anger, just in need of space to breathe, to process, to understand how the daughter I'd given everything to could look at me and see something shameful. "Mama, please. It's just 1 day. After the wedding, everything will go back to normal. This is just to keep the peace with Marcus's family. You understand, don't you?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I wasn't sure I recognized anymore. When had she started caring more about appearances than truth? When had she learned to measure people by their bank accounts instead of their hearts? "I understand," I said quietly. "I understand perfectly." She left shortly after, relief visible in the relaxing of her shoulders. She thought I'd accepted it, that I'd go along quietly, hide myself away like a secret she was ashamed to tell. But what my daughter didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I'd spent my whole life being quiet, being small, being grateful for scraps. And that night, as I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the empty savings account statement on my computer screen, something inside me shifted. I looked at that statement for a long time, $47, 329.18 withdrawn over 4 months. Every cent I'd saved for 15 years. Gone in the blink of an eye. For a wedding where I'd be hidden away like something broken. And in that moment, sitting in the silence of my empty house, I made a decision. I would go to that wedding. I would sit where they told me to sit. But silence, I realized, is only powerful when you choose to break it. And Saturday, I was going to speak. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of sunshine that makes everything look like a painting, golden light streaming through lace curtains, birds singing their hearts out like they knew something beautiful was about to happen. But as I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, fastening the pearl necklace my late husband had given me on our 10th anniversary, all I could feel was the weight of what was coming. I'd chosen my outfit carefully. The navy dress I'd been saving for special occasions. Modest, elegant, nothing flashy. I had my hair done at the salon on Friday. Let Betty give me soft curls that made me look gentler than I felt. I looked at myself in that mirror and saw a woman who'd worked her fingers to the bone, who'd sacrificed her dreams, who'd loved without condition. And I wondered if my daughter would even really see me today. The ceremony was at 2 o'clock at Magnolia Grove, that plantation venue with the gardens that went on forever. I arrived at 1:30, early enough to watch the other guests arrive in their expensive cars, wearing their expensive clothes, carrying their expensive gift boxes wrapped in silk ribbons. I parked my old Honda between a Mercedes and a BMW, feeling suddenly very small. But then I remembered, small doesn't mean invisible. And today, I wasn't planning to be invisible anymore. The venue coordinator, a thin woman with a clipboard and a permanent frown, spotted me as I walked toward the entrance. "Name?" she asked, not looking up. "Alice Morrison, mother of the bride." Her head snapped up, and I watched her eyes take me in. My department store dress, my sensible shoes, my simple pearls. Something flickered across her face. Pity, maybe, or understanding. "Oh," she said softly. "Yes, Mrs. Morrison. I have you. Right this way, please." She led me through the main hall, past the rows of white chairs decorated with flowers and ribbons, past the arch where Sarah would say her vows, past the seats in the front where Marcus's parents would sit. His mother in her designer suit, his father in his custom-tailored tuxedo. And she led me to the back, behind a decorative pillar, where the view was partially blocked and the seat was in shadow. "Will this work for you?" the coordinator asked, and I heard the apology in her voice that she wasn't allowed to speak aloud. "It's perfect," I said, and I meant it, because from back here I could see everything. Every false smile, every pretentious gesture, every moment of the elaborate show that my life savings had bought. The guests began filing in around 1:45. Marcus's family came first. A parade of wealth and refinement, air-kissing and laughing, that polite laughter that rich people do, the kind that never quite reaches their eyes. His mother, Constance, wore cream-colored silk and diamonds that caught the light like tiny stars. She was beautiful in that cold, careful way. Not a hair out of place, not a wrinkle in her designer suit. I watched her scan the front rows, nodding with satisfaction at the arrangement, at the flowers, at the perfection of it all. Her eyes never made it to the back, never found me sitting in the shadows. My co-workers from the diner came next, Rosa and Jennifer and old Pete, all dressed in their Sunday best, looking slightly uncomfortable in this fancy setting but smiling warmly when they spotted me. Rosa squeezed my hand as she passed. "You look beautiful, Alice," she whispered. She didn't ask why I was sitting in the back. She didn't have to. Some things you just know. By 2 o'clock, every seat was filled. 300 guests, give or take. 300 people gathered to watch my daughter marry into a family that had taught her to be ashamed of where she came from. The music started, a string quartet playing something classical and expensive sounding. Everyone stood. And then I saw her, Sarah, walking down the aisle on the arm of Marcus's father, because she had no father of her own to walk her, and apparently Marcus's father had volunteered for the honor. She looked like an absolute dream in that $4,000 dress, her veil trailing behind her like a cloud, her face glowing with happiness. I felt my breath catch, because even through the hurt, even through the betrayal, she was still my baby girl. Still the child I'd rocked to sleep during thunderstorms. Still the teenager I'd stayed up late with during heartbreaks. Still the woman I'd have given anything for. And I'd given everything. She didn't look toward the back as she passed. Didn't search the shadows for my face. Her eyes were locked on Marcus, standing at the altar in his tuxedo, looking every inch the perfect groom. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll give them that. The officiant spoke about love and commitment, about two families becoming one, about the journey ahead. Sarah and Marcus exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Promises of forever, of partnership, of choosing each other every day. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," and Marcus lifted Sarah's veil, I saw her smile, pure, radiant joy, and I felt something break and heal inside me at the same time. They walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, and the guests erupted in applause. I clapped too, there in my shadowy corner, watching my investment, my sacrifice, bloom into this moment that she'd wanted so desperately. The ceremony ended, and the coordinator announced that cocktail hour would be in the garden while they prepared the reception hall. The guests filed out, chattering excitedly, heading toward the bars and the past appetizers and the beautiful late afternoon sunshine. I stayed in my seat for a moment, just breathing, just gathering myself, because the hard part was coming. The reception hall was transformed. Long tables covered in cream linens, centerpieces of white roses and candles, string lights hanging from the ceiling like captured stars. The head table sat on a raised platform, decorated more elaborately than the others, with the best view of the room. I found my assigned seat at the reception. Table 17, far from the head table, tucked in a corner near the kitchen doors. My table mates were distant cousins of Marcus's family. People who didn't know me, didn't particularly care to know me, who made polite small talk before turning their attention elsewhere. That was fine. I wasn't here for conversation. Dinner was served. Some fancy chicken dish with a sauce I couldn't pronounce, roasted vegetables arranged like art, bread that probably cost $5 a roll. It was delicious, I suppose, though I barely tasted it. My mind was elsewhere on what was coming next. After dinner, the toasts began. Marcus's father went first, standing at the microphone with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. He talked about legacy and family and how proud he was to welcome Sarah into their fold. He talked about Marcus's accomplishments, his bright future, his excellent choice in a bride. He never mentioned me, never acknowledged that the bride he was welcoming had come from somewhere, had been raised by someone, had been loved into existence by a mother who'd worked herself to exhaustion to give her this day. Then Marcus's best man spoke. Funny stories, embarrassing anecdotes, wishes for happiness. More laughter, more applause. Sarah's maid of honor went next. Her college roommate, a girl named Brittany who'd never had to work a day in her life. She talked about Sarah's grace, her beauty, her ambition, about how Sarah had overcome so much to get here. Overcome. As if I'd been an obstacle to get past rather than the foundation she'd built her life on. I felt Rose's hand find mine under the table. She'd somehow made her way over from table 12. "Alice," she whispered, "don't let them make you feel small." But I didn't feel small anymore. I felt clear, certain, ready. The DJ announced that the floor was open for any other toasts. Anyone who wanted to share a memory or offer congratulations. And I stood up. The room didn't notice at first. I was just another guest, standing at a back table, probably heading to the restroom. But then I started walking toward the front, toward the microphone, and I saw the coordinator's eyes go wide. Saw her start to move toward me, then hesitate. I reached the microphone before anyone could stop me. "Excuse me," I said, and my voice, amplified by the speakers, cut through the chatter like a knife through butter. The room fell silent. 300 faces turned toward me. And at the head table, I watched my daughter's face drain of color as she realized what was about to happen. I stood there at that microphone, looking out at all those faces. Some curious, some confused, some already uncomfortable. And I looked at Sarah, frozen in her seat, her new husband's hand gripping hers like an anchor. "I'm Alice Morrison," I said clearly, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm the mother of the bride, and I have something to say." Sarah's face wasn't just pale now. It was stricken, panicked, and somewhere deep inside me, beneath the hurt and the anger and the sadness, I felt something unfamiliar rising up. Felt like freedom. The silence in that reception hall was so complete, you could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. 300 people, frozen mid-conversation, mid-bite, mid-sip, all staring at the woman in the navy dress who'd appeared at the microphone like a ghost they hadn't expected to see. I looked out at those faces and felt strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm, when you've already made peace with whatever destruction is coming. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My voice wasn't trembling. I'd spent 35 years being quiet, and quiet had gotten me a seat behind a pillar at my own daughter's wedding. Well, child, sometimes silence is golden. But sometimes it's just surrender dressed up pretty. "I'm Alice Morrison," I repeated, letting my words settle over the room like snow. "And I've been sitting in the back all day. Some of you probably didn't even know the bride had a mother." A few uncomfortable shifts in seats. A nervous cough from somewhere near the bar. "But I am her mother. I've been her mother since the day she was born, 28 years ago in County General Hospital. I was her mother when her daddy died and left us with nothing but memories and medical bills. I was her mother through every scraped knee, every broken heart, every dream she ever dreamed. I saw Marcus's mother, Constance, lean over to whisper something sharp to her husband. He started to rise from his seat, but something, maybe the look on my face, maybe the absolute stillness of the moment, made him sink back down. Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when I'd finally found my voice. "I worked at Rosie's Diner for 32 years, I continued. Double shifts, holidays, weekends, whenever they needed me, I was there. My feet ached, my back ached, everything ached, but I showed up. You know why? Because I was saving for something. For 15 years, every spare dollar went into a savings account. I was going to buy a little cottage by the lake. Nothing fancy, just a place where I could sit on a porch and watch the sunset and finally rest." I paused, letting that image sink in. Let them picture it. A tired woman's small dream. But then my daughter came to me with a ring on her finger and stars in her eyes, talking about the wedding she wanted. This wedding. This beautiful, perfect, elegant wedding. I gestured around the room, at the flowers, the lights, the decorations that had cost more than some people make in a year. And you know what I did? I gave her that cottage. I gave her that sunset. I gave her 15 years of dreams so she could have one perfect day. The room was so quiet now, I could hear my own heartbeat. Or maybe that was just in my head. $47,329.18, I said, my voice never wavering. That's what this wedding cost. Every flower you see, every candle burning on these tables, every bite of food you ate tonight, I paid for it. I sold my late husband's truck. I cashed in my retirement fund. I worked until my manager begged me to take a day off because I looked half dead. I finally let myself look directly at Sarah. Her face was buried in her hands now, her shoulders shaking. And 3 days ago, my daughter came to my house and asked me to sit in the back, behind a pillar, where her new family wouldn't have to see me, where I wouldn't embarrass her with my diner uniform smell and my working-class hands and my little life that apparently wasn't good enough for people who measure worth in dollar signs. Constance stood up now, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment or both. "This is completely inappropriate." "You're right," I said, cutting her off with a calmness that surprised even me. "It is inappropriate. It's inappropriate to hide your mother at her own daughter's wedding. It's inappropriate to be ashamed of the woman who sacrificed everything so you could have everything. It's inappropriate to forget where you came from the moment you think you've arrived somewhere better." I turned back to the room to all those shocked faces. "I'm not telling you this to ruin anyone's night. I'm telling you this because there's a lesson here that I learned too late, and maybe, just maybe, some of you need to hear it too. Before I continue, let me just say this to all of you listening. If this story is touching your heart, if you're feeling something deep in your chest right now, then stay with me, child. Subscribe to Grandma Alice Stories. Hit that bell so you never miss a tale, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because these aren't just stories. They're life lessons wrapped in truth. And the truth is the only thing worth passing down. Now, let me finish telling you what happened that night. The lesson is this," I said, my voice softer now but no less clear. "You can't build a beautiful life on a foundation of shame. You can't marry into a family that teaches you to look down on the people who lifted you up. And you simply cannot, forget that love isn't measured by what someone can give you, but by what they're willing to sacrifice for you." I looked at Marcus, who sat stone-faced beside my weeping daughter. "Young man, you seem like a decent person, but your family's money, your family's name, your family's status, none of that matters if it comes with the price tag of forgetting who loved you first. If your wife can be taught to be ashamed of me today, what else will she learn to be ashamed of tomorrow? Her own struggles? Her own past? Maybe even you, when times get hard." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. What could he say? I turned my attention to Constance, who stood rigid near the head table, her diamonds catching the light like shards of ice. "And you, Mrs. Whitmore, you wanted my daughter to hide me because I wasn't polished enough for your image. But let me tell you something about image. It's just a mask. And masks crack. The question is, when yours does, who's going to be there to love you anyway? Because I guarantee it won't be the people who only knew you when you were shining." Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. But she said nothing. Sometimes the truth doesn't need an argument. I took a breath and looked back at Sarah, who had finally lifted her head. Her mascara was running, her perfect makeup ruined by tears. She looked young suddenly, vulnerable and scared and sorry. So very sorry. "Baby girl," I said, my voice cracking just a little for the first time. "I love you. I've loved you since before you were born, and I'll love you until the day I die. But love doesn't mean letting someone treat you like you're disposable. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity so someone else can keep their pride. You asked me to be invisible today, and I tried. I sat in that back row. I stayed quiet during the ceremony. I ate dinner at table 17 near the kitchen doors where nobody important had to see me. I paused, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. But I'm your mother, Sarah, and mothers don't stay invisible. We show up, we speak up, and sometimes we have to teach our children the lessons they should have already learned. I set the microphone back in its stand with a gentle click. I hope your marriage is everything you dreamed it would be. I hope you find happiness and love and all the beautiful things life has to offer. But more than that, I hope you find gratitude. I hope you find humility. I hope you remember that the people who love you when you have nothing are worth more than the people who only love you when you have everything." The room remained silent as I stepped away from the microphone. My legs felt shaky now, the adrenaline starting to fade, but I held my head high as I walked back down the aisle between those tables. Rosa met me halfway, wrapping her arm around my waist. "Come on, honey," she whispered. "Let's get you home." But before we reached the door, I heard it. "Mama!" Sarah's voice, broken and desperate, echoing through that silent hall. I stopped. I turned around slowly. She was running toward me, her $4,000 dress bunched in her hands, her veil slipping, her face a mess of tears and ruined makeup. She looked nothing like the perfect bride who'd walked down that aisle 2 hours ago. She looked like my daughter. She reached me and collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. "I'm sorry," she gasped between tears. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry." I held her there in the doorway. This girl I'd raised. This woman I'd sacrificed for. This child who'd forgotten and then remembered what really mattered. Behind her, I could see Marcus standing at the head table, uncertain. I could see Constance, furious and humiliated. I could see 300 guests watching this moment unfold. But all I could feel were my daughter's arms around me and her tears soaking into my navy dress. "I know, baby," I whispered, stroking her hair like I did when she was small. "I know." And as a child, at that moment, I had a choice to make. The same choice every mother faces eventually. Hold on to the hurt or make room for healing. Life has taught me a lot of lessons over the years. But maybe the most important one was this. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about deciding that love is stronger than pride, and tomorrow matters more than yesterday. What I did next, well, that's a story for your heart to finish, not just your ears to hear. Kendall, sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is tell the truth. And sometimes the most powerful thing a mother can do is leave room for her child to grow.